Warning, this video contains spoilers for both Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. A lot has happened in the world since the final devastatingly disappointing episode of Game of Thrones, but the hunger for more has not yet died down, and now Martin has revealed House of the Dragon improves one book character. Let's take a look at what's up in the world of Westeros and beyond. First up, everything we know so far about House of the Dragon. It's been a long road, but we're finally at the end of it, and then we'll finally get to see the highly anticipated House of the Dragon. Its release has been postponed until August 2022, but from what we're hearing, it's going to be well worth the wait. The 10-episode Game of Thrones spin-off series is based on the book Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin, and you'll be able to watch it on HBO, of course. House of the Dragon promises to depict how the House of Targaryen fell into a bitter and brutal civil war, which is known as the Dance of the Dragons. It presages the beginning of the end of the ruling family of Westeros. Given that this story takes place 2 centuries before the events in Game of Thrones, we really shouldn't be counting on any cameos, not unless we're given some glimpses of the future, but even then, chances are very, very small. But the cast that is set to carry House of the Dragon is nothing short of amazing. We'll have Paddy Considine taking up the mantle of King Viserys I, the head of the Targaryen family. Taking up the role of his first child and daughter, Princess Rhaenyra, is Emma Darcy, who is also Viserys' heir apparent, and Princess Daemon, Viserys' little brother, who will be portrayed by the talented Matt Smith. And from them, we'll all get our first really good look at the full tapestry of Targaryen and watch as its history is revealed. Next, House of the Dragon improves one book character. George R.R. Martin has watched an unfinished version of the first 9 episodes of House of the Dragon, and he very much approves of what he's seen. In fact, he dared give voice to a possibly very unpopular opinion. Martin thinks the show has even done better than he did with the book Fire and Blood. Even in the rough cut, it was glaringly obvious to the author that there's something very special about a certain element of the series, and that element is the glorious talent that is Paddy Considine. Dedicated fans will know that Martin wasn't nearly as pleased with the Shay from his books as he was with the Shay of the TV show. After the lovely Sybil Kikili had stepped in to allow Shay to come alive and given her a much deeper, richer, and more nuanced character. Now Martin has the same praise for Considine. Martin wrote on his website, not a blog, that he's, quote, vastly impressed by the show's version of King Viserys, played by Paddy Considine, who gives the character a tragic majesty that my book Viserys never quite achieved, unquote. According to Martin, showrunner Ryan Condal and his writers have made a few adjustments to the story as well. The biggest one is probably that it was simply impossible to present 3 alternative versions of every major event without losing their sanity. But other than that, the author himself approves. That must be a great sign, right? Following some of the more important House of the Dragon changes so far. Sometimes when it comes to adaptations, adjustments are made here and there, for better or worse, whether they want to or not, in order to make a book adaptation work for the big screen. The luck that we all have with Fire and Blood is that it is a largely informational book compared to the narrative drive of Game of Thrones. This means that a lot of Fire and Blood's most dramatic plot points are subject to interpretation and rumor. This gives some leeway when it comes to the creative freedom that comes with an adaptation, without upsetting too many fans. But with a lot of rumors and personal interpretation there for everyone, there aren't a lot of solid things that can go wrong in an adaptation. We know that changes have been made in House of the Dragon, but will they be low-key enough to not disrupt fans from viewing enjoyment? For one, King Viserys has been described by George R.R. Martin as more tragic, possibly putting more weight on our hearts before they break, just as tragically as the king himself. The death of Sir Harold Westerling has been changed as well. As we saw in the trailer for the series, Harold is still around after the time jump, as opposed to dying 2 years prior to the marriage between young Rhaenyra Targaryen and Laenor Velaryon. And speaking of House Velaryon, in House of the Dragon, this proud family has dark skin, but are still described as silver-haired. What do you think? Will these changes be okay? Stay tuned. Is there really a Jon Snow spin-off in the works? If that's the case, where could it take us? And can we talk about Winds of Winter for a moment? Let's get going. First, is there a Jon Snow spin-off in the works? Every fan of Game of Thrones knows that Kit Harington loved his time as Jon Snow, but he also really didn't like some of the aftermath, which is why he was very clear about not having any desire to take up that mantle ever again. But maybe the wind has shifted, and Harington may be willing to adjust his sails anyway, because word on the street is that Jon Snow is coming back. and it may all be Harrington's idea after all. The Hollywood Reporter has revealed that HBO has entered into an early development stage on its first sequel for Game of Thrones, and Kit Harington is expected to reprise his role as Jon Snow. In total, there's a lot of Game of Thrones related content in the making at this very moment. 3 spin-offs, Dunk and Egg, The Sea Snake, and 10,000 Ships. And then there's the 3 animated spin-off prequels, one of which is The Golden Empire, which is set in the land of Yi. So how likely is it that Jon Snow is actually getting a sequel, especially considering how adamant Harrington was about not wanting to be Snow ever again? Well, Emilia Clarke has revealed in an interview with BBC that she's not only aware of the project, as far as Clarke understands, quote, "It's been created by Kit as far as I understand, so he's in it from the ground up," unquote. It's actually happening? Following, where a Jon Snow sequel could take us. There were a lot of things that left a rather bad taste in everyone's mouth after the finale of Game of Thrones' final episode, and Jon Snow's character arc was arguably the second most disappointing one, just behind Daenerys Targaryen's descent into apparent madness. But with all this talk about a Jon Snow sequel and HBO's decades of experience in the TV industry, it might actually be possible to finally rinse our mouths of that horrible taste that Game of Thrones left for some of the most beloved characters. And with a universe as rich as Westeros, of which George R.R. Martin only barely touched the surface, there's still so much to explore and so many stories to unravel. A Jon Snow sequel would open up lands beyond Westeros, especially with Arya going off on her own again to explore literal uncharted territory. Talk about an easy creative blank canvas. But seeing Jon live his life in the true north with the free folk, smack dab in the middle of the vastness of the northernmost regions of Westeros, could easily justify new adventures that eventually feed into a grander storyline and conflict, not to mention how easy it would be to fit in all our other tragic survivors of Game of Thrones. Even if there isn't a shadow of a blueprint by Martin for where Jon Snow's story goes after Thrones, the potential we see here is almost too much to bear. Next, update on Winds of Winter, please. It's been over a decade since George R.R. Martin published a book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series. Game of Thrones has come and has been long gone since. So much has happened in the world. Other books that reside in the universe of Westeros have been published, but still no release date for Winds of Winter. In a blog post, Martin has opened up on the struggles that he's had with the series. The author has suffered the loss of many of his dear friends over the last few years, which won't have helped him to feel very inspired to begin with. But the constantly having to defend himself and his progress, or lack thereof, repeating the same answer over and over again, is wearing Martin down. Writing isn't as straightforward as people would like to believe, but Martin would like everyone to understand that he is chipping away at the story. He finally finished a chunk of Cersei chapters that were giving him a hard time and is now battling Jaime and Brienne. And let's all remember that to Martin, all the stories are important, as he himself has said, not just a song of ice and fire. And that's it. When do you think Winds of Winter will be released? Let us know in the comments. And thanks for watching.